Our guest today is the guitar player in one of my favorite bands from a second story window and the host of a new podcast, which I love. And I have had the pleasure of being a guest on called Riff Tacos. We have Paul Misko joining us. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Happy 316.
I was going to say the same. Happy 316
Nice,
day to you.
nice,
Thank
nice.
you for having me on. I'm stoked.
I'm so stoked, man. I'm happy to see you making art and doing your show and killing it. Uh, so before we went live, we were talking a little bit about Ohio. Your band, for those who don't know, is
Hmm.
from Ohio. What is wrong with Ohio?
There's just not much to do here. We grew up in like Howland. Well, most of us. Joe's from Sharon, PA, which is pretty much the same thing. Just kind of these hollowed out
Yeah,
industrial towns where there's not much to do, not much going on. And unless you kind of create something for yourself to do, you kind of got to get out of here to do something or go to school somewhere else or whatever. And I think there's just a lot of like kids who grew up poor, a lot of kids who grew up angry, and just somehow got into making music. And we've had a lot of awesome metal bands come out of the state. And
yeah.
I happen to be lucky enough to be in two of them, Robinson
Seriously.
and From a Second Story Window. So
Yeah, I love that how a location can affect someone's music, like when they're making music. And I feel like I see Ohio when I hear from a second story window.
yeah,
Uh,
you told me when you came through. Was it for the chasing down the pedophiles? You were listening to us or something to get
yeah,
through it. I was like, wow, that is insane.
yeah. I love Ohio, despite its flaws. I mean, all of our states have massive flaws, but I love Ohio. And I spent my before I did that story, I spent time in Ohio to report on the East Palestine train wreck,
Right,
and
right.
that was like my first time like really spending a lot of time in Ohio, and it was devastating because you see like there's a lot of industrial towns that have lost their people, their population's been drained. But then
Mhm.
that town was just devastated by this crazy, like a nuclear explosion. Is that anywhere near where you guys are?
Uh, it's not terribly far, but it's far enough that it didn't like affect anyone I knew directly or
Yeah.
anything like that. Um, but yeah, all those same reasons I kind of mentioned about why I wanted to leave. Like I left too after the band broke up.
Right.
I just had to go move and try California on for size. Lived in LA for a while, but all those same reasons I wanted to leave are reasons I like it now because I'm
Uh-huh.
40 and it's
Yeah.
like it's chill, it's cheap to live. Like I love the area I'm in. I'm 5 minutes from where I grew up. I'm 5 minutes to band practice. We're still practicing in the same place where we did when we did back in the day in Nick's
Incredible.
mom's house because there's a studio built in the basement and she
Incredible.
was gracious enough to let us do that. So yeah, it's cool now. I can appreciate those things about it
Yeah.
despite like hating it because also you kind of had like the typical like movie high school type thing. Like
Right.
my girlfriend always she's like, "Wait, you guys like rode your bikes in the park and like, you know, took your proton packs to school and like she's like you had the Stranger Things like childhood." I was like, "Yeah, we really did. It was cool. I do
Yeah.
appreciate that too."
Yeah. I love that's how I grew up too, in a small, weird town, where we rode our
Yeah.
bikes around. And I love that. And then we also all wanted to escape for various reasons, but I find myself wanting to get back to that kind of life now that I have kids. The quiet.
My bike was my life. I lived on that and
Yeah.
yeah,
Do,
friends down the street, just drive to them, meet them in the park, whatever, just being hooligans.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like speaking of the bands from Ohio that were crazy, like I was saying Marilyn Manson's from Ohio,
Yeah.
12 Tribes, Chimera
Yep.
or Chimera, however you say
Yes.
it. Like there's a lot of
Chimera was a huge one for us
yeah.
because they were from Cleveland, and we heard that This Present Darkness EP, and hearing like the way they did the double bass and guitars, kind of like Fear Factory.
Yes.
But I liked it way better than that, and
Yes.
that was a huge, huge influence for all of us.
I love that. Yeah. And then there's also other bands that are not heavy like that, but I think is the Black Keys from Ohio, I think. All right. Well, I wanted to talk. You told me a story briefly when I did your show. I know you made a video about it, but since this is the inverted world and we talk about a lot of weird stuff, you were mentioning your issues with a sleep demon.
Yes.
What's going on with that?
Well, it's something that's been happening to me like once or twice a year since I was probably 18 or 19.
Mm,
And the very first time it happened, I had never heard of sleep paralysis, had no idea about anything like this. I was still living with my mom, and I was an only child. Parents were divorced, so just her and I. I was in my room sleeping. I had a bed, but I also had like a futon that was in front of like my TV and whatever. And so I fell asleep on the futon. TV was off, and the only light in the room was from this like from my laptop, and that's all you could see. But you can see enough. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I saw that light, and I was just kind of laying there for a second, and then something moved in front of me, like a for sure a figure that blocked the light. And I was like, I started to freak out, and I couldn't move. I was completely frozen. And I thought my mom had walked in the room for,
Hmm.
check on me or something. She's the only person that was in the house. I didn't have any dogs or anything that was like big enough to like walk in front of that. I just had this little beagle. And so I freaked out, obviously, because I couldn't move. And I knew I saw a figure cross in front of me. And eventually, if you've had that before, you kind of fight out of it.
Hmm.
And I sit up, and there was no like, I closed my eyes again and woke up. It was for sure I was awake. I was frozen, and I saw something. And I was so sure I went into her room and woke her up. And I was like, was that you? Were you just in my room?
Whoa.
Like, there was someone in here. And so I had to go check the rest of the house, make sure no one broke in. But I was positive I'd seen something. And then I didn't even know what to think of being frozen.
Mm.
So that just scared the shit out of me. But
Yeah.
I think it didn't happen for maybe a few years after that. And then I was in college, and I lived with a bunch of roommates. We had like 4 or 5 people in this like townhouse, and had my own bedroom. I was in there in the middle of the day. Decided to take a nap, locked the door so no one could fuck with me, because you're living with people in college. So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
always lock the door. Lay down. I think it was the same futon I brought with me. I'm laying down to take a nap and fall asleep. I wake up in the middle of the nap, and I feel something jump up on the bed, like a dog, like a little dog or a cat would, and it
Hmm.
like kind of nuzzles in between you and like the wall or like whatever. And it was shaped like a couch. It was folded up, so it was like something was in there, and it felt just like how my dog would do that at home. But we didn't have a pet, and the door was shut.
Hmm.
And so as soon as I kind of came to and realized, oh, that's not a pet because we don't have one, I was like, what the fuck is that? And I start to try to move. I'm frozen again, but I could feel it like
Whoa.
in between me and the back of the futon.
Whoa.
And that one reminds me of like, if you see in the paintings, because this has been like part of human history for so long, the little ones that are sit on your bed like this.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah.
That's what that felt like, as opposed to the dark, big shadow figure. So I've
Interesting.
experienced both of them.
Interesting.
And so that I freaked out, eventually was able to move. And this was interesting because it was like 2 p.m., sunny outside.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't like the usual dark at night, scary thing, but I for sure felt something up there with me. And I'm like, okay, I remember this from a few years ago. And then it just started to happen once or twice a year. Always the same thing where I was frozen. I could feel something on the bed physically. I'm for sure awake. All I can move is my eyes. And then probably with the story I told you was more recent.
Hmm.
When I was living in Texas, my girlfriend and I had this house. We had like basically another huge upstairs living room, and I had a couch up there, TV where I'd play video games and sometimes fall asleep at night. So I fall asleep up there, and this was the first time it was like very, very scary, like evil presence feeling.
Right.
And I woke up, it was pitch black in that room, frozen per usual. So I kind of recognized what was happening right away. But this is the first time, like, it was like that dark, long figure. I felt like it was right over top of me, and it came up like right to my ear, and it was like seething in my ear, like
Whoa.
almost like a static hiss, like coming through another fucking dimension. It was
Whoa.
the scariest thing. And as it would kind of inhale and exhale, I could feel like the shivers going down my body. Like I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it.
Holy
It was like
crap.
fear in a physical form. It was just terrible.
Wow.
And so that one stuck with me and shook me up. And like it took a few days for that to go away. And then the most recent one, which was just happened a few months ago, which got me to do that episode,
Yep.
kind of stuck with me for a few days too. And it was a similar thing. This time I could actually see it. I was on my side, I was frozen and could not move. I felt it touch my back, like something was doing this. And I have 2 cats. They sleep in the bed with me, but they don't do that.
Right.
I know that's not them. I'm also frozen again.
Hmm.
So I can kind of out of this, like, usually I don't see it. I just hear it or I feel its presence.
Hmm.
This time I saw it. It was the black like figure thing right behind me.
Wow.
And I'm getting so angry trying to like ball up my fist and turn and hit it and go like, fuck you. And like in my head, I'm screaming, fuck you, fuck you.
Wow.
And it was that same evil, evil feeling again. It did the hissing, seething thing in my ear. and then all of a sudden it's just gone.
Whoa. And that was the last time it's
Um,
happened.
yeah, that was a couple months ago, or maybe 3 months ago. Whenever it was, right before I did that episode.
Okay.
So that got me to like do that. I was like, this is a good, because I also looked up like creative people and like who have more creative imaginations or work in the arts or some kind, or more susceptible to this kind of thing.
Interesting.
I don't know, it's because you're more open minded or whatever, but I was like, this would be a good podcast episode.